TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV. Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe,
There's no volume. Oh, I don't. Yes, it's no volume. No, that's what I'm saying. Yes. Greetings. This is Millennium News 24. This is the Interfaith Talk Show, and I'm your host, Kamenti Ube, and I have a special guest that's with me today. His name is Siraj Amir Bey. And we're going to be talking about the Birthright Citizenship Act that the President Trump wanted to eliminate. And so we're going to go into some details so that way that the people can be aware of what's going on out there. So, Brother Siraj, can you give a bit of your background and introduce yourself?
Okay. Of course, again, my name is Siraj Amir Bey. I generally started out, of course, in the Christian church. 2009, I was introduced to the Moors, and I started doing research on the Moors 2009. And 2010, I declared my nationality, and it's been one ride ever since then. It's been a beautiful ride, coming into some, more knowledge, more etymology, more science, and of course, a great financial and etymological education from yourself.
Gotcha. You kind of remind me of myself, Brother Siraj, because I declared my nationality and birthright 30 years ago, which is very, very important that the people and the viewers who's listening have to realize that declaring your nationality and your birthright is very, very important, because the Birthright Citizenship Act falls under what you call the 14th Amendment. And technically that amendment was created back in 1868, and it was for so-called Negroes, is what the people were being called at that particular time, all right, because of the slave conditions that the African-American community was facing at that time. So even though we fought in the Civil War back in 1861, all right, and then of course Lincoln in 1862 had what you call as an executive order, all right, and then came up with the Emancipation Proclamation, all right, freeing up the so-called Negro, blacks, and coloreds from the states who were holding us in these conditions. But meanwhile, while we were in a dilemma, all right, and not recognizing any forms of what you call citizenship, so they decided to come up with the 14th Amendment in 1868, and that was to give the so-called Negro, black, and colored the citizenship, second-class citizenship, to be even clear. And then, of course, the 15th Amendment was to give you the voting rights. All right, now this was not for the women specifically. This was just for the men, because the colonial European, as they call masters, were very biased, because even their own women couldn't even vote during that time of that year. All right, so, but the point is that the reason why we declare our nationality and our birthright, right, because the 14th Amendment specifically says that's all persons born or naturalized, all right, are considered to be citizens and subject to the United States and of the state where they reside. And this is where this whole concept of the Birthright Citizenship Act stemmed from, the 14th Amendment. Now, President Trump wanted to eliminate that, which would have been difficult to do, because why? Because people got to be aware and realize that the Birthright Citizenship Act is codified under Title 42 of the United States Code. All right. And what is that code referring to? That's public welfare. All right. And also citizenship. All right. So in order to be able to get any of the privileges, immunities, all right, and rights under citizenship status, even though it was second-class status, all right, the point that you would have had the same rights as white citizens, which is under Title 42, Section 1981. These are references that we are giving you, all right, so that people can go and look these statutes up. That's what you have to do, is go to these particular sites and do this research. But in the meantime, you started off, Brother Siraj, you know, just like myself, because majority of the Negro, Black, and African American community has been Christianized by Europeans under either Protestant or Catholic, doesn't matter. Right. And we all been raised in some type of Christian church, but we have gotten away from that because we see that all that was not really beneficial to our community at large, even though we still got the masses of our people across this country who still believe in the tenets of that particular faith, all right? But what we're going to discuss today, Brother Siraj, is this whole concept came from what you would call the Christian Black Code. So you want to elaborate on this Christian Black Code, and then from there, technically, we're going to look at the Torah, which is the 21st chapter of the book of Exodus. You may want to start there, because the Christian Black codes were fabricated out of the 21st chapter of the Torah. So you want to start off with the Torah, and then we're going to go to the Christian Black codes.
Yeah, which is very interesting. Yeah, because what you see in the 21st chapter of Exodus, right? Let me get to it. The 21st chapter of Exodus starts out in the I'm in the 30th chapter. Didn't want to go that far back. Also, I wanted to mention while we here, there's 8 USC sections 1408 and 1452.
Yes.
So here we go. So it says, now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve you, and in the 7th year, or in the 7th, he shall go out free for nothing. If he come in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. right? And if the master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons and daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and shall go out by himself. He shall go out by himself. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free. Then his master shall bring him unto the judges, right? And shall also bring him to the door, or unto the door post. And his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. And if the man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the men servants do. If she please not her master, who hath betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed, to sell her unto a strange nation. He shall have no power, seeing he have dealt with her deceitfully. That he had dealt deceitfully with her. And if he betrothed her unto his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. In the final, if he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall not be diminished. And that was the final one. That was from verses 1 through 10. But something interesting too about the reason why I mentioned the 8 USC sections 1408 and 1452 is because that was talking about non-citizens, non-U.S. citizens, nationals.
All right, you want to go into that?
Yeah, which deals with birthright.
All right.
That section deals with a process of the passport that only a certain amount of people can get that type of passport. And one of the stipulations in that is that you cannot be on voters registration to get that type of passport. So you have an allegiance, even though it says non-citizen, you're not a U.S. citizen. You are a national of the U.S. on allegiance to a state, which is very interesting. They don't say they're not talking about the state of Michigan, the state of Indiana, so on. They're talking about a state which is a political jurisdiction,
like Samoa.
Yes,
in places like that. Anything outside of the U.S. 50 states, you're talking about those territories which are nationals that will be qualified to get that type of passport. So it wouldn't have to be based upon what they would call a birthright citizenship status in order to get that passport.
Correct. Yes.
All right.
And actually, I have that type of passport also.
Excellent. Now, what about Section 1452?
Well, it's pretty much the same thing. It was you had to pass the requirement of Sections 341 that your both parents had to have blood tied to the land, basically, which is going back to you sanguinis and you soli, or which is you soli the land and you sanguinis is the blood.
Yes. And what is the Latin term in reference to that to show that one not being subject?
Oh, it was similar. It's the Latin term was jura sanguinis, I think supont, which means that blood cannot be destroyed. Let me get that correct. That your blood and kinship cannot be destroyed by any civil law.
Which is very important because that's what's going on today. They're using the 14th Amendment, right, to destroy the blood and the kinship.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because when you start studying politically what's going on in this country with Trump wanting to get rid of that because the cartels from out of South America was sending women over here to get pregnant by men, so that way they can have children over here, so they can infiltrate. All right, and so that was one of the issues that Trump was addressing. But the reason why he couldn't get rid of that birthright citizenship status, because that's affecting the welfare system. All right, because that means that any child that is born here, or even the mother who gives birth to that child, would have rights to get in public welfare. All right. So, and of course, Social Security falls up under that, besides Medicaid and Medicare. All right. So to get rid of that would interrupt the whole healthcare system that falls up under Title 42, which is the welfare statute. All right. So I think it's very important that we to address that. All right. Another factor that we need to look at is that even folks from foreign countries other than South America that would come here, and women would get, of course, pregnant. Of course, Trump wants to stop that, so that way, if a child is born here, that means they wouldn't have any rights to that citizenship status. So it's like a two-edged sword. It seemed like it help protects people's rights, and then it also goes against people's rights. So it's very critical that we pay attention to exactly how the executive order is attacking the birthright citizenship status under the 14th Amendment, what became an act. And of course, this goes back to 1868 is when this was established. All right, so we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be right back for our viewers. Thank you.
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages seen America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space, business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
Yes, and we are back. And this country, Brother Siraj, is a melting pot for immigration. Mm-hmm. All right. And so the first migration of people here was the Europeans. All right. Through colonialism and the monarchies of Europe was sending their people over here to work. Mm-hmm. And so they who was here managed to use the land and labor of the indigenous people, because people got to be aware that this America right here, especially in the United States area, mm-hmm. the indigenous people in this land, they was here for thousands of years. All right. And these people look like me and you, Brother Siraj. All right. Right. So now the Hollywood would want to show you what they would call Indians, because the indigenous people have never called themselves Indians. All right. No. And it's interesting because they came, the United States government, those officials came up, and what year was that? That was in 1820 24, I think is the Indian Act, and they were stating that how the Indians were being looked upon as U.S. citizens. You recall that?
Yes. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that they even created a statute, a federal statute, which is Title 25, all right, of the United States Code, is specifically for the Indians. But the Indians that they're talking about, these Indians are the Mongoloids who came over the Bering Strait down into the United States and mixed among the indigenous people. So there is a difference between the indigenous people and what they call as the Native Americans. The Native Americans are the Indians. Those are the ones that they keep pushing out on television when these cowboy movies, but they never show the ones that look like me and you. William Lawrence Katz wrote a book, The Hidden Heritage of the Black Indians. I mean, that's how he labeled it. But but the so-called Black Indians never really call themselves Indians. They call themselves by their indigenous names, like like Pamunkey. You can go into that, brother. It's very important that the people hear you.
Yes. When I, of course, what I did is I did my 23. A lot of people don't want to go to 23andMe, but I did the 23andMe, DNA test, and then I had it followed up by a geneticist, by a brother by the name of Tyrone Cannon Bay. In fact, that's where I actually got that, that little that you were saying was thing from, where we was talking about that blood and kindred cannot be destroyed by any civil law. And so what he was doing in there, he was talking about the out of Africa theory, and that that theory was based on a certain time frame that was really incorrect. So what he was saying is that basically with my Southeast Asian and indigenous American native heritage, which was supposedly a very low point, right? But the lower that number is, the more ancient it is. So those were all considered to be, these tribes were considered to be Muslims or Moors. So when I speak of the Pamunkey, we didn't call ourselves Indian. We were Pamunkey Moors, who were part of the Powhatan, the larger group of the Powhatan, right? And there were there was a lot of other groups out of there, such as the Nottawa. The Nottawa was one of the queens of the Nottawa her name was Edie Turner, which was ultimately related to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So this is some of the background to this stuff right here, that we're not Indians. We didn't call ourselves that. These were the colonists calling us these things, supposedly because Columbus was looking for a passage over into India. But the truth is that many people were coming here way before Columbus. The Polynesians, were coming here from I believe out of the parts of Taiwan, right? Which they call from out of China. They was here many, many years before they were.
True.
And what they call the Austronesian integration and stuff like that. And then they mixed in with us over time. You know what I'm saying? So the Mongoloid, they came much later, kind of like what we're seeing today. These are the remnants of the Mongoloid invasion by Genghis Khan.
That's right. And not only that, too, Brother Siraj, that the officials of the United States during that time period, they gave them a lot of privileges on lands that they call reservations, but technically there was really concentration camps.
Yeah. And
those concentration camps was really directed to the indigenous people, not so much the Mongoloid looking Indians, but the indigenous people with the tier of trails.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because what they was doing was they was homogenizing us and putting us in a place that we were not really accepted or even being subject to the Birthright Citizenship Act that was created during that time. All right. And you know, the interesting thing that earlier, as we was reading the 21st chapter of the book of Exodus, and again, the Christian Black Codes, what I want you to go into, because the Exodus 21st chapter was adopted by Europeans to reconstruct the Exodus chapter 21, which most of the Christians today do not know. And when this was done in 1724 was that year, it was done in the month of Ramadan. All right, because a lot of the brothers and sisters here, we were Muslims. All right, we were not Christians. All right, the Tripoli Treaty shows that this was not a Christian nation, but this was a Muslim nation that we lived under back then. All right, so let's go a little bit into the Christian Black Codes.
Okay.
If you can turn to certain articles, like for instance, something that you read or quoted, I should say, about a master marrying the wife and bearing children.
Yeah,
that's in Exodus. All right. Now they use the term Hebrew slave, but that same concept was used in the Christian Black Codes against the indigenous people here and the Africans all over. All right. And there was laws in the Black Codes where a slave master cannot lay down with the concubinage of African women or indigenous women.
Yes.
All right. So there's certain articles in the Black Codes that we can read, that you can pick out choice articles. We're not going to be able to go to all the articles, but we can pick out some choice articles to give people the idea of the Christian Black Codes that gave birth to the Jim Crow laws.
Yes.
All right. That most people don't realize where it comes from. And the origin of the Black Codes of 1724 goes back to Napoleon, which is called Code Niort. All right. In English, it's called the Black Codes, which goes back to Louis the 14th in 1685. So is there any article that you want to quote and read out of?
Okay. Really, I'll go to Article 6, because Article 6 is very interesting. So Article 6 says, we forbid our white subjects of both sexes to marry with the blacks under penalty of being fined and subjected to some other arbitrary punishment. We forbid all curates, priests, something just jumped in my way. I don't know why they're doing this. You know how that is. We forbid curates, priests, missionaries, and our secular or regular clergy, and even our chaplains in our Navy to sanction such marriages. We also forbid all our white subjects and even the manumitted or freeborn blacks to live in a state of concubinage with slaves. Should there be any issue from this kind of intercourse, it is our will that the person so offending and the master of the slave should pay each fine of 300 livres, which is very interesting. That's gold. Should said issue be the result of concubinage of the master, his slave, said master shall not only pay the fine, but be deprived of the slave and of the children, who shall be adjudged to the hospital of the locality, and said slave shall forever incapable of being set free. But shall this illicit intercourse have existed between a free black and his slave, when said slave, according to the forms prescribed by the church, said slave shall thereby be set free, and the children shall become free and legitimate. And in such a case, there shall be no application of the penalties mentioned in the present article.
You know,
So,
as you was reading, Brother Siraj, you mentioned something about the locality of the hospital and where do our women bear our children at is the hospital. And what's going on is that a lot of us don't realize that when you go to the Black's Law Dictionary, the 6th edition, unabridged, and you look up the word delivery, all right, and of course our women go into what they call as the delivery room, constructively but not manually, they hand our children over to the state, and in return they would give the parents a state birth certificate, and this is why they can claim our children, you know, where they can go in the house and take your children if they feel that if there's some kind of abuse or neglect, all right, because it's the birth certificate that allows them to do that because of the locality of the hospital where the children are being born at. So I think that that's important, that that Black code, Christian Black code of 1724, look at the year and look what's going on today. So it's still current.
yeah.
The Black codes are still current, all right? And because the people was not educated to see that these laws were set against us today. And a lot of us think that because we are Muslims or because we are Christians or Hebrew Israelite, that we are exempt from these things. And if we are exempt from these things, or the indigenous people are exempt from these things, if we are, what are we doing with the state birth certificate? All right. So when you go to Genesis chapter 25, all right, with Jacob and Esau, what they was talking about, birthrights and not birth certificates.
Right.
Right. And so, of course, Jacob, which means supplanter in Hebrew, supplanted his brother's birthright. You know, he was planning or scheming with his mother to act like if though he was Esau, to steal his brother's birthright from the blessings of Isaac, who he thought that he was speaking to his son Esau because everything goes with the elder before it's passed down to the young one. All right. So, and this is in your Bible, that for the Christians who are reading it, or the Muslim or the Hebrew Israelite, or even the Jews in reference to the Torah or the Tanakh, it's in there. All right. I'm sure that these Jews got birth certificates, all right, which they shouldn't even have. All right. Because the state is controlling us through these birth certificate instruments. All right. And so you can see through the Black codes of 1724 that that's still continuing, but they codify these things in law so that way we won't be able to recognize these issues, you know. So there's any other article that you would, that you would like to also point out from the Christian Black codes?
Yeah, I want to talk about the 25 USC, and I believe it's 181 through 184.
Yes.
Right. It talks about the white man, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And I have to specify that when they say that, they're talking about WIGHT rather than WHITE.
That's true. That's true.
They mentioned that if a white man would marry a squaw, right, and that that he could not have any land that came from her clan or from her tribe, right? He couldn't have the land. But what will happen is that the children will be able to inherit that the land from the mother. However, what was going on, sometimes mysteriously after they had like 2 or 3 children, maybe 3 to 4, mysteriously the mother would die. And so through that inheritance, the children would regain it, but their father would become their masters, if you will, and then he would marry off those children to his to his cousins, to his relatives.
Oh, his sons, yes.
Which I thought, to his sons, and so on, which I thought was very interesting. His sons and his daughters, or should I say his cousins, sons and daughters.
Gotcha.
My son was born in Germany, right? But when you do his genetics, his birthright citizenship comes back to the Americas. He does not have birthright citizenship in Germany, even though he was born there. His birth certificate is associated with Germany, but because of the Usanguineous blood that me and his mother carried, his birthright citizen comes back here. So it's very interesting that when you want to try to do away with birthright citizenship, it would be very difficult to do because internationally, Usanguineous and Usoli is an international law, but
True.
actually it's exclusive to the Americas and parts of Western Africa and and some other regions, but exclusively of the Americas, which I find very interesting.
Well, you mean the United States?
Yes.
The United States. All right, so we're going to take a break, commercial break. We come back for our viewers and express more information to our viewers on after this message.
Welcome to Millennium News 24, your trusted source for accurate, unbiased news. We're here to bring you the stories that matter most from America and around the world with integrity and a commitment to truth. In today's world, where misinformation can easily spread, having access to reliable news is more important than ever. At Millennium News 24, we aim to cut through the noise by delivering clear, fact-based reporting. Whether you're following major events or looking for in-depth analysis, we are here to serve you with transparency and respect for all communities regardless of color, wealth, or religion. This beautiful America was built by the resilience of its people, immigrants, entrepreneurs, doctors, and everyday individuals working together to create something great. It's this spirit that inspires us to provide you with news that's inclusive, honest, and relevant. We believe that informed citizens are the foundation of a strong society, and we strive to give you the knowledge you need to make a difference. From breaking news to insightful features, we bring you comprehensive coverage on politics, economics, health, culture, and much more. We believe that everyone deserves access to the truth, and we are proud to be a part of a global network that connects people through information. Stay informed by following us on your devices, including iOS, Android, Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, and Smart TVS. And for global access, we're also available on Horizon Satellite. Visit us at www.millenniumtv24.com or www.millenniumnews24.com to stay updated at Millennium News 24. Our mission is to promote unity, understanding, and progress in a rapidly changing world. Join us as we work to inspire positive action through the power of truth. Thank you for watching. Follow us, subscribe, and stay informed.
Yes, and we are back. I just want to make a note for those, because this program is being watched all over the world and all social media. And it's very important, Brother Siraj, that when we use certain terms, other cultures don't know what those words mean. So we want to be very definitive and articulate what it means so that way people know what we're talking about so they won't be lost. All right. Like the word sanguineous is just sanguineous, just meaning law, sanguineous meaning blood, just solely means soil or the land. So people would know what we are talking about. And when he make mention about in chapter 25, referencing what marrying indigenous woman, the Europeans have a tendency to use derogatory terms for our women, and they would call them squaw. All right. In our culture, in our indigenous culture, we don't call our women squaw. All right. That's a derogatory term. All right. So I think it's very important that the people all over the world who's watching would be aware that we never call our women squaw. That's very disrespectful for them to even put that in the legislation, because Title 25, which is dealing with the Indians, all right, they also grouped or homogenized the indigenous people along with the Indians, and the indigenous people never called themselves Indians. And when you look at these treaties that we had with these Europeans, we never classified ourselves as Indians. We used the indigenous names, you know, like Cherokee, you know, the Lakota, you know, or the Delaware Lenape Moors. All right, you know, we always use our indigenous names. We never use the term Indian or any other derogatory names that's outside of our cultural idioms. Yes, Brother Siraj. So you can continue.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct, because squaw was just a word to try to replace the identity of the indigenous woman or the indigenous man, right? Yes. Very interesting. But and before the break, there was another article, Article 10 of the Christian Black Codes. It says, if the husband be a slave and the wife a free woman, it is our will that the children of whatever sex they be shall share the condition of the mother and be as free as she, notwithstanding the servitude of their father. And if the father be free and the mother be a slave, then the children shall be slaves as the mother. Yes.
You see? Now that's interesting, because again, that was the year of 1724 in the month of Ramadan, which was between November and December. All right. Mm-hmm. And so look how the European Christian Black codes affected the Muslims here in America before the colonists got here. All right. Because Islam was in this country 1,000 years before the colonists was here. And a lot of Muslims from the East don't know that. The indigenous people here know that history, all right? And the West African, all right, who came here 1,000 years before Columbus, all right? So you're talking about, if they're talking about 1492, we're talking about 492.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Or even go further back. So it's very important to know the year of the events, what was going on at the time. So because we are in the month of Ramadan, we also have to make mention of that the Christian Black codes were going on in the month of Ramadan, all right, in 1724, all right? And those Christian Black codes are still going on to this day, all right? And here we are again, we in the month of Ramadan, all right? And so a lot of negative issues with legislation that's going on that's subjugating the people, all right? So is this truly a democracy? When they're using the Christian Black codes, all right, and in the Christian codes, all right, you know, this is what people need to be aware of, Brother Siraj. So that Article 10, any other articles in the Christian Black codes?
Yeah.
What about Article 3? What about Article 2 or 3? One of them got to do with the Catholic faith, remember?
Okay, let's go to that article.
I think it's either 2 or 3.
Yes, it is. Right, you're correct. It's Article 3. Article 3 permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic Creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited.
That's see?
Article 3. Yeah.
That's Article 3. So we who was Muslims, all right, in this land was prohibited to practice our Islamic faith back then.
Yes.
All right. And when you see the movie Roots with Alex Haley, when you see Kunta from West Africa being captured and brought over here, right? When you see him in the barn, he was prostrating and praying to Allah. All right. Mm-hmm. But then was it Luke Gossip Jr., who I forgot what role he played, but when he seen Kunta prostrating and making salat, right? He said, mm-hmm. Oh boy, you can't do that here. You don't want the slave master to see that you're prostrating and you praying some kind of way and calling on some type of God that the slave master would not recognize. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that show you that even in the movie Roots, they even show you that not only that the West African who came here was practicing Islam, but even the indigenous people here was practicing Islam. So I think it's very important that we express that, especially for the month of Ramadan.
Yeah, very interesting, because also you find that in that movie Django, when they're when I forgot the guy's name that played in the movie Django, when he was talking about the grandfather, you know, and when he spoke about his skull, he said that they had these 3 bumps, like that was identical on all of our skulls, the indigenous people. And he mentioned that because they were submissive, right? Not because we're submissive to slavery or torture. He was really talking about Islam, that we're submissive to Allah.
True.
Right.
True.
So I found that very interesting in the movie, because they, you know, you find little things, you know, throughout, you know, the movies, that you'll see that, you know, they don't really explain it in detail what they're really talking about, but you can pick it up. You know what they're talking about, you know.
True. And you know, interesting you saying that, because Django, who was a U.S. Marshal, all right, the movie was a bit distorted because they made it seem like if though he was the sidekick of the bounty hunter who was German.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So, but Django was looking for the love of his life, all right, who was raised in Germany also, all right, and she spoke German. Yeah. All right. So, so it's interesting, because when they were sitting at the dining table, this is when this in Candyland, this is where the slave master wanted to crush her skull, because he wanted to know what was the purpose of the bounty hunter and Django's, what business that they got to do in Candyland, knowing that they were after this woman, which was the love life of Django. So it's just interesting that you brought that up, because these are the subliminal messages that they drop in these movies, because they know. The issue is that we don't know, Brother Siraj, but it's interesting that they know. Any other articles in the Christian Black Codes that you want to read out that's going on today?
Okay, let's see. Oh, let's see. I think I almost got locked out here.
You know?
Hold on. All right, there we go. Let's see what's interesting here. Here's something that's very interesting. Article 16, 17, 18, and 19 is kind of, they combine it all together. It says, provide at length for the clothing of slaves and their subsistence. Sounds like welfare to me.
Yes, yes.
You know, that's what that sounds like. It sounds like welfare. Because they're going to provide their clothing, their subsistence, you know, which is exactly what welfare is doing today to our women and their children.
True. So you can see, yes, as you were.
So even welfare is in there.
Exactly. That's what I want to say. Exactly. Because again, that's Title 42 of the United States Code. What is that? That's the Welfare Federal Statute. All right. This is why Trump could not really get rid of the Birthright Citizenship Act, because the Birthright Citizenship Act, it comprises a lot of privileges and rights to that citizen under that statute. Even though Title 42 is not positive law, but they're using that statute politically, all right, to provide, as you read in the Black Codes from 16, 17, 18, that they was providing these things. So now when a woman who has children who's in need of that service, what do she brings to the Department of Social Services? The birth certificate, and the Social Security card of that child. So it's just interesting that you read that in the Black Codes, because people got to realize that what's going on today been going on for hundreds of years.
Yes.
All right. So this is nothing new that's going on that we are bringing to our viewers to hear this. And they can also reference and review these things on their own. All right. But one of the main factors of this birthright citizenship that we are expounding on is to declare your nationality and your birthright. All right. Making a declaration, because the states are using the birth certificate as a collateral against the children all the way up to an adulthood, right? And so people got to be aware of that. There was a federal statute, I should have brought it with me, where the states are getting $2 million for every child that's born within the state. All right. That's separate from whatever the birth certificate is generating. All right. But again, $2 million. All right. It may be even more today. Yeah. All right. $2 million. So now if the state is getting $2 million for that child born in that state, would you think that that money should pay for the child's education? Pay for the child to have a home, food, clothes, and shelter, and a business? You see what I'm saying? As opposed to the issue that's going on in the political platform about what? That they want to give every American in the United States $5,000. $5,000, you know, and that's a big issue. You know, you can hear Jasmine Crockett arguing against it, you know, and most people think that she's wrong for wanting to not have the people to have that. But to me, I think that $5,000 is a joke, because when the migrants came over here under U.S. aid, they was getting more than $5,000, right? You can speak about it in your area in Arizona, as I can speak about it in New York. So what was it getting in Arizona, Brother Siraj?
Well, in Arizona, we were still hearing the same thing, that, you know, that they supposed to give us the $5,000, which I think, like you said, is really a slap in the face. Because if you're saying every American, well, who are you classifying as being an American?
But not only that, but what I'm saying is when the migrants come here, that's the $5,000 is a new issue that they're bringing up. Yeah. I'm talking about remember the migrants came over and USA was funding them under the Democrats with Biden administration?
Yes.
Can you explain what were they getting in Arizona?
Oh, yes. They were getting a siphon of $5,000 a month here. I have one of my great friends, Master Mike Salmon. He found that out from one of his neighbors who is Ukrainian, and they were getting a $5,000 a month siphon, and they didn't have to pay any rent. Plus, they were getting clothing allowance on top of that,
and food stamps and medical
and food stamps. And when you was riding down, when you go down to certain areas, you would see these big signs that they were going to the Social Security Administration, and the Social Security Administrations were flooded with these migrants, and they were getting all of these, these subsidies to help them out, right? And to where many of our brothers out here are on the streets. They can't get any of that stuff.
Yes, the homeless.
Homeless. Yeah, I know a brother personally. He can't get any of that because the migrants have, basically drained the pot, if you will.
True. And not only that, the ones who are here under birthright citizenship can't get it, but the migrants who doesn't have birthright citizenship was getting it.
Really? You see, that doesn't make any sense.
And look what you said, $5,000 a month. Based upon what's being said for the U.S. citizens that's here, American citizens, that $5,000 sound like it was a one-time thing, not something that's a continuum. Mm-hmm. But now the migrants is in the position of the homeless, because now they stopped the aid to the migrants, and now they don't got nowhere to go. They're being evicted. You know what I'm saying? They're not even getting what they were getting at the time. And so now, like the city of New York with Mayor Eric Adams, who caused economic hardship on the city of New York. And this is one of the big issues that people in New York have against Mayor Eric Adams, who's trying to run again But I think that Cuomo is most likely going to probably get that position, even though, he had some issues in the past.
Yeah.
So
they had a big thing out here a couple of days ago. They were marching against ICE out here. I don't know it was in Phoenix. I don't know what particular street it was because, me and my wife we was going somewhere and she pulled it up and she was looking at it because we was actually in Phoenix and she said, oh, well, we got to avoid this area right here because they got the streets blocked. They are protesting against ICE out here. But I would assume that these are now what you're saying, the migrants who cannot get these subsidies anymore. And really the parks, the park, the bus benches are full of people living at the benches, living on the streets, living in the parks.
Same as like in New York. Yes, they're living in Central Park or other places they're living in. And that's a big issue because now where you put them at, as you allow them to come in. But I also want to let people know that USA was funding those South American governments or states to prevent the migration. So they was getting money then. So there was no need for them to be migrated. So we don't even know if those South American government was misappropriating the funds. You see what I'm saying? So apparently they had to be misappropriating the funds because so many people from Venezuela, Colombia, various places, in South America and Mexico was coming over the border and federal fundings was given twice because once they kept them from coming and then when they came, the tax people's money or dollars were funding that twice, and here we are suffering, and it's just interesting that we have to address these issues, and educate people what we can do. That's why it's so important to get the 501c3, a coalition of them, and have these non-for-profits to be funded to help the people because the Democrats is not helping the people at large. The Republicans is not helping. You don't hear nothing from the conservatives, all right, or the independent or the liberals, all right. So the lead political parties is the two I named, Democrats and Republican, and the people are the debt is falling on the backs of the people who are being labeled as taxpayers. So it's just interesting, Noble, that there's so much of a great economic turmoil in this country on health care. They're talking about Social Security, touching that. And there's just a lot of plethora issues that's going on out there in the United States. All right. So, but the people have to come together and provide for themselves. All right. And that's why these non-for-profits needs to have a coalition to come together and get funding from these private companies and these businesses that we support. So that way it can go back into the pockets and support the people because the government right now is failing the people. All right. They're not failing foreign aid, which of course that's being cut off now. So even the school lunches is going to be cut from foreign aid because I didn't know that the school lunches was being supported by foreign aid. So now the states have to kick out money to keep the school lunch programs going. So there's a lot of issues going on out there, and we have to begin to start finding ways that we can economically empower ourselves independently away from the system that is utilizing us. All right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take a break. All right, commercial break to our viewers, and we'll be back shortly.
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages seen to America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space, business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
Yes, we're back, and we're going to be closing out our show for next week. We'll be back, and I just want Brother Siraj to give his last deliberation while I'm closing out. Let the people know what's going on, Siraj.
Okay, so before that, we was talking about the how the government is failing the people, and that we have to come together, to basically help ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Because the government is not going to necessarily give us anything, but I see the opportunity now that we can actually pull our own selves up, if you will, by our own bootstraps. We have that opportunity. Technology has, cut straight through some of these things that we can get to. But I would say the key that we need to know as a people is nationality, because we're talking about political jurisdiction here. As I mentioned earlier in the show, that I have a certificate of non-citizenship, United States national, right? And that you can't get that unless if you're on voter's registration, if you will. If you're on voter's registration, you cannot get that type of passport. You can get a passport, but it'd be a regular U.S. citizen's passport. Now, the reason why I say that is because you'll find out that this voter's registration is actually tied to funds that whether you vote or not, those funds are still there, because it is sort of like a trust certificate, if you will, that you're giving them. But if we take and bring that to our own community of our own people, then we'll be doing better off. There is no government that's going to give us anything. We are that political body politic that I believe that has always been here. The Muslim creed has always been here. And once we come back to our own, traditions and customs of our foremothers and fathers who were before us, then we'll be a better off people, because then our life will belong in the land which the Lord thy Allah have given us.
That's right.
And if it's Christian, the Lord thy God have given you.
That's right. That's right. And if it's Hebrew or Jewish, it would be Hashem. Mm-hmm. All right. Because some of them use Elohim, some of them use Yahweh. Yeah. So you got diversities among the Hebrew Israelites and the Jews and stuff. So it's very important to be aware, because our people is also diversified in these different faiths. So that's why it's so important to learn, so that way we can be able to communicate and come together to uplift each other. All right. So each one of these tenets of faith has a program to uplift all of humanity and the integrity. So I respect all faiths. All right, for humanity's sake. All right. So we're gonna be, of course, be back here next week, Friday, and I thank you for coming on, Brother Siraj. All right, and giving the people insight on it. All right. So we're gonna close out, and everybody have a healthy and prosperous day and weekend, and throughout the week. Very important. Very important. All right, because so many people are sick. So important to be health conscious. So I'm gonna definitely address these illnesses. What we can do, like you said, we have to help ourselves. So very important. So thank you for coming on, and of course we're gonna close out, and we are gonna talk later, Brother Siraj.
Yes.
All right, brother.
All right.
All right.